I'm not going to be on it today because I'm so tired, but let's give it a go.
So we'll roll through it and see how we get on. That's it, we're starting late today anyway, but it doesn't matter. Sun's shining and we're good.
Exactly. No meal deal down our system yet.
That's it. It's coming, the meal deal. That's what's going to get me through the episode.
Yeah, exactly.
So welcome back to Wedding Capture Co. I am Tom.
And I'm Chris.
Oh, look at that. We're so in sync. So I'm a wedding photographer. Chris is a wedding videographer. And we are here to have some conversations about what we do in our jobs.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't believe this has rolled around. We do like one of these recording sessions a month.
Yeah.
And they're just getting quicker and quicker as the wedding season comes in. Like the time is just going so quick sort of thing. So I can't believe we're back here already.
And also more is happening in those gaps. Like we're both, you've had an epic weekend of shooting weddings and we've both been busier, but the recording seemed to get here quicker and quicker. And it seems mad that the next time that we record, we'll record our 10th episode.
Oh, true. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
So today we're going to do 7 and 8, and then next will be 9 and 10, which is bonkers.
I know. I remember last time when we spoke, you were just like, "Oh, what are you up to?" It's like, "Yeah, I feel like it's just it's getting into wedding season, but it feels quite chill." And this time's like completely opposite. Like, I walked in, and I was like, "I'm dead." Last week was crazy. What is going on? And I think it was the same for a lot of people last week because it was we had bank holidays, I think, and it was half term as well. I had 4 weddings and a family wedding. There was like a last minute thing in Brighton, and I had a wedding in Oxford on the Friday, and didn't get to Brighton until 1 a.m. on the Saturday morning, and the wedding was 11 a.m.
That's rough.
So for a start, who has their wedding at 11 a.m? Sorry, Dad, but
I guess it was last minute though. That maybe might have been the town hall slot that he was given.
I think it's pretty much like that was the slot. Let's just get it booked in for then, sort of thing. But that was a pretty mental week, and you had a pretty crazy week then as well, right?
Yeah, I did. What did I do? Yeah, I had the bank holiday weekend. I did a double, and then I had a really, really great wedding last Friday. Yeah, it was like one. You get those weddings where you're kind of like, these are the days that if I could shoot like weddings like this every single weekend of the year, like I'd have no energy left, but I would be the fullest ever. Like Katie and Ash's wedding at Wickham it ticked every box. I
do love that feeling. I love that feeling, and we'll get on to. We're actually going to talk about unicorn weddings today, and if they actually exist. I don't know where I got this phrase from, but we'll get into that in a second. I just wanted to tell a bit of a story from Friday, which is so embarrassing, but I had to.
I feel like we need like a battle story. Yeah.
So essentially, Friday was the last one of the 4, and we were doing evening couple shoots. So we went out. We were sort of walking down this driveway out. It was at Notley Abbey, and I was walking backwards with a gimbal and filming the couple. Amazing shot, so cool with the sun setting behind them. It was really cool. And then I just bump into something and I hear a massive crash. And I turned around, and what had happened is the venue had put out all of the Prosecco for the evening guests that were coming. I'd walked into the table and knocked it all over. So there was 20 odd glasses of Prosecco just on the floor, just smashed. And obviously I've got the bride's reaction to it, which was initially just like, oh my God, the groom's like trying to smile through the pain. And then thankfully, and honestly, like this makes me so grateful, is that afterwards the couple just like ripped the out of me basically for it, which is good because that's the best reaction they could have had. Like they could have got really angry, but instead they found it hilarious basically that I'd done it. So the rest of the couple shoot, they basically they were laughing and chatting about me doing that, but it gives them something to talk about. And
anything, whether I'm fully aware sometimes that I'm like fully prepared to make a fool of myself if that's what's needed sometimes in order to give you that kind of rapport. Not that I'm saying you do this intentionally, but sometimes you need that just to I've heard a story before and I can't remember who it was that told me. So if they're listening to this, they can message and own up. But I remember talking to a photographer who went and stood up, you stand up on like a chair or a picnic bench to do an everybody shot back in the days before you had drones to do this stuff for you, and stood up there, trying to get everybody to wave at the camera, and everyone's laughing. It turns out that he'd just been to the bathroom before and stood up in front of everybody with his flies undone.
Oh.
So you got 80 guests in front of you, and you're probably eye level to them as well because you're up on the bench.
That sounds about right.
With the flies undone. But he said it's easily the best everybody photo's ever taken. To try and get 90 people to laugh at you. That's the way to do it. So yeah.
I imagine. Yeah, you have to be willing because you're going to be sort of centre of attention for a bit, aren't you? Especially as a photographer. But yeah, so how are you feeling about the wedding season at the moment? Are you feeling like?
I feel like it's been busy, which has been good. But I really feel like, and I don't often feel like this, so I'm going to try and ride it while it's still there. Is at the moment I feel like I'm I'm doing a good job, which I think I normally get to this time of year and I'm not. Like I get to that point where I feel like everybody else is shooting better weddings than me, or I come home and look, if I have a day that maybe didn't go quite the way that I hoped, and you think, oh, everyone else has slayed it and I haven't, and then you start to feel that pressure some more. But I feel that at the moment, I feel for the most part that I'm doing a good job. I feel like the weddings that I've gone to have been enjoyable, and even if maybe the weather hasn't lined up or there's been a timing issue, it still hasn't resulted in the gallery not going the way I want it to. Like I've had my doubts, but on the whole, I kind of feel like more confident than I normally do at this time of year. So there's still time for it all to go wrong yet, and no doubt it will. But at the moment, I kind of feel like I'm holding my own, and I'm in a fairly good headspace compared to where I have been at this time other years. So
yeah, I think I can definitely relate to that. Like other times, I think by June you're sort of like, oh, I haven't done the weddings that I thought I was going to be doing this year. Yeah. In the sense of, oh, maybe that's not a portfolio, that's not a portfolio, that's not a and then you're kind of like, oh, okay, what am I doing wrong? I'm getting these weddings that maybe, you know, they might go absolutely fine, you might deliver them perfectly, but they're not the ones you want to show. And sometimes you go into the season with this sort of optimism, and then sort of halfway through, like, oh, if you haven't got as much as you thought you would in terms of like the things that you really want to shoot, you can start to doubt, you know, I don't know, your marketing techniques, or maybe not getting your ideal couple or things like that. But for us, like we touch wood, have had just like an amazing start to the year in terms of like, you know, how lovely the couples have been to us, how well we get on with them and things like that. And it doesn't always work out that way. And so far it's been really good. So
I think as well, even the last 2 years have been intense. I was just kind of look at how many weddings I'd have shot by June last year, because your memories kind of come up, and I did over. So this weekend just passed would have been the Jubilee weekend last year when we had the long bank holiday, and I shot a triple that weekend last year, and so and two of those weddings were really, really great. The other one was lovely, but maybe wasn't as, when I had like the first and the last one were like really wow weddings, great venues, great couples, did really cool things. The one in the middle was always going to be a more lovely wedding. That's like, and it sounds really horrible. All of the couples I got on equally with all of them, but maybe the middle couple didn't quite have that quite kind of extra kind of flair or something that the other two couples had chucked in. And I remember finishing that triple kind of on a real high, that I'd actually made it through 3 summer weddings as well, where you kind of stay longer. Managed to, a lot of them were a drive away as well. Like I think the first one, the last one were much further away than the middle one.
Okay, yeah.
I'm kind of thinking, you know, I've shot 3 in a row. Like I've shot a bunch the other weekend, and I think I'd shot probably well into double figures by this time last year, where now I think I'm sat here only having shot, I think, about 9 weddings. Yeah. So just less than a third of what I've got for the year.
That's crazy. Yeah. That it's nice to have them all spread out a bit. But I think you've said something to me in maybe a previous podcast, which you said something about like doubles and triples, because we sort of tried to avoid them a little bit, but this year it's been absolutely impossible. But the fact that once you do, you know, those busy weeks, you can't get to the end of that week and you're like, that's a big chunk of my year's weddings all done now. So that's a good thing. And July's going to be crazy. I've got like a double, a triple, and a double, and it's
that
just
was my July last year.
But why? Like, why is it spread out more?
Do you know what? Though I think you know, this episode is ultimately more loose. We can elaborate on these points and not kind of go off topic. Is that what you said is true? I think to feel, I've hit a milestone. I'm halfway through, and it's not that you want to wish them away. Yeah. It's just kind of having an evaluation of, okay, where am I at? What's my editing part? Like, how am I feeling? To kind of know how much you've got to come, or how much you've got to prepare, and stuff for going forward. But I've always, as I've kind of gone along this journey as a photographer, of maybe starting to look at shooting less. Over, my prices have gone up. I don't need to shoot, the 45, 50 weddings that I was shooting before. So in some ways, the necessity to do doubles and triples should be less. Yeah. But a triple maybe not so much, but a double I love. As long as they're geographically well placed, I love a double. And I think sometimes the couple on the second day, depending on how long the gap has been going into the first wedding, get the better of you. Like, you kind of need to focus on a task in hand. Yeah. I kind of feel like I get home from the first wedding, high from, it's been a really good day. But I know that I don't need to kind of come down or rest or think about other things. Yeah. Because I'm still on the wedding train. Do you know what I mean? I literally get home, chuck everything on charge, back up the files, do my previews and go, right, awesome, get job sheet out, read through, the plan's done, where am I going, what am I doing, get into bed, and I still wake up in wedding mode. Yeah. So by the time I get to prep for the second wedding, I'm in it. Do you know what I mean? Where you're not kind of getting that like momentum going that you are at the start of a wedding.
Think what you said as well, and that's what resonated with me. And I think that has kind of, it's almost worse when you have like one day in between. When you have like a Thursday and a Saturday, and on Friday you're there like, Well, I can't really get started on anything. I've got to like transfer stuff and do, yeah.
But also, I feel that should be a rest day. If you're doing 4 weddings in a row, if you have a gap in the middle, that day should be nothing but laying in a dark room or kind of just resting your body and mentally preparing yourself for the weddings to come.
Yeah.
But I almost feel that I can't rest.
Yeah.
It's almost like waiting to get on a plane when you go on holiday. Do you know what I mean? You've had the excitement of getting ready in holiday mode, and then you got to sit at the airport for 3 hours. Like it's kind of you're waiting for something to happen, so you can't do anything in that bit. It's kind of a void.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then the prospect of going on, do you know what? I only want to shoot, say, maybe 30, 35 weddings a year. If I could have half of those as doubles.
Yeah. Yeah.
That leaves whole weekends free.
And
like to shoot on a Friday and have the weekend off, you still shoot on the Friday, so you still have that going in. Or if you shoot on a Saturday, the weekend as a whole, you can't go away or do whatever. You get a day off. But to shoot like Saturday, Sunday or Friday, Saturday for like 15 weekends of the year, then you got the other 35 or 37 free.
And I don't think no matter how much you charge, I think it's always going to end up that it's a typical way that you would just get a really good inquiry like the day after another wedding.
Definitely.
You'd be like, well, I didn't want to do a double, but this one is too good to miss. So I've got
and providing that they're not in different countries or opposite ends of the country or something, and you think that travel is sensible. Again, next episode that we're talking about is we're specifically honing in on summer weddings and how to survive those and how to manage your way through those. And you've got to remember that if that wedding is over the May bank holiday at the end of at the very end of May, you're looking at later finish time, later sunset. So, if you're in Yorkshire and you're not going to finish till 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. to then drive back and go and shoot in Cornwall on the next day, might not be the smartest idea.
No, exactly. I think
what's the furthest you've done in 2 days?
The furthest I've done in 2 days.
What's the longest travel you've done between 2 weddings?
It was New Forest to Devon.
Oh, wow, that's quite a trip,
it was Ryan Fieldhouse in the New Forest to Tunnels Beaches.
Oh,
and the Tunnels Beach. Do you know why it was? Because it was an accident. So essentially, in 1 year, we had 3 people called Robin who booked us, and I got 2 venues mixed up. And so when it came to like a couple of weeks before, I was like, oh yeah, this one's here and this one's here. And I was like, oh no, I've got one that are 3 hours away from the one the day before, like 3.5, 4 hours. So I ended up driving that night, like pretty much halfway on most of the way to Tunnels Beaches, and that was like 4 days before my wedding as well. So I was already as stressed enough as it was, but it was well worth it because I love Tunnels. I always take them. I was going to say,
yes. Depending on which one book first, you don't turn down a Tunnels wedding anyway.
No,
do you?
exactly.
You really don't.
If I get an inquiry for that, I just take it. That's exactly what it is. But the thing I struggle with, if you have a certain amount within a small space of time, I do like having the momentum and that. Is the inspiration and the motivation, because I found that for the first one was obviously you get there, you're full of life, it's good to go, and then by maybe the 3rd or 4th, it's not that like the motivation goes down. I'm never going to a wedding like oh, I just don't want to do this. It's more of I've done like 3 couple shoots in the last week, and I've done all of the creative bits that you have to actually think about. You're thinking, I think too much into it. I'm like, because I've done this, when it comes around to doing a couple shoots there, I'm going to be so creatively drained that I'm not going to be thinking of like really cool ideas. Instead, I'm just going to be trying to power through. I
know what you mean, but sometimes I think I've had some of my favourite shoots in that way, because sometimes you go to a wedding, and particularly if you've not been to the venue before, or you've got an inkling that this couple like that you got my second guess. Oh, I think they're going to be really good, or they're going to really be like this. And if they're not, it can throw you on a couple shoot, and then you go, oh, I'm out of ideas. Where I think when you get to wedding number 3, you're like an autopilot. You're like, just go out and see what happens.
Yeah.
And you react, I think, to much more what happens in the moment.
Yeah.
Because you haven't had that kind of lead time in going, oh, well,
maybe on this shot.
Oh, if that venue, if we can get the right light in that bit, that would be cool. Where on the day, you're like, just get out, see what they do, see how they are, see where the light falls, and we'll make something, and they'll love it. Yeah. And I think sometimes you almost need that, like the busyness of the other weddings takes away. It gives you that chance to not worry about it. Do you know what I mean? So you get out there, and if you've been doing this for a degree of time, that you've got an eye as a creative, you can see things in the moment anyway. Yeah. And sometimes you don't rely on that enough if you've had too much kind of like chance to kind of get yourself a game plan together, if that makes sense. Where I think sometimes we should, as photographers or videographers, if we relied on our instincts more often, we might we know more than we think we do, or we might see something in the moment that we'd missed because we'd planned to go and do that shot. And
that's a very good point, because I think you can approach a wedding with a preconceived idea of what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Like I know if we speak to a couple and they're like, oh, we've got all of this entertainment, singing waiters, we've done smoke grenades and champagne, I would be absolutely buzzing.
Yeah.
But you never know how that day is actually going to turn out. Just because on paper it looks good, you don't actually know whether it's going to live up to that expectation. So like you say, if we could approach weddings in more of a we'll turn up and see what happens kind of way, I feel like maybe you would get the best stuff.
And I think the longer that I've done this as well is you can never judge a wedding by its cover.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I actually said this to my couple when I went out with them on Friday. So they were a really great couple. I'd known them. They'd been a bridesmaid and a guest at a wedding I shot last year. I did a really cool engagement shoot with them. It's been a long journey. So I felt that they were I was in good company of almost friends by the time we got to the day.
Yeah.
So I had really high hopes for their wedding. I knew they were great. There was a couple of other couples that I'd photographed in their bridal party. So I was well suited. They had lots of things lined up. And I said to them, we went out at sunset in the evening and we got a pretty like perfect sunset. And I said to them that normally if I go into a wedding with really, really high hopes, it never lives up.
Yeah.
You almost go in and whatever you think this wedding's going to be or whatever you think's get out of it, you almost hold it to too high a standard in your mind.
Yeah, you do.
That you don't get there. And even though sometimes I've made some of my favourite photos, I still come away with that little sense of deflation of like, oh, but it should have been this.
Me and you have definitely turned up to a wedding before and gone, this has all of the things to be a good wedding.
That's it, it's like making a cake, isn't it? It's like, I've got all the best ingredients, the recipe's there, but for some reason, you absolutely like throw it in the oven and it's done and it comes out flat and inedible. And, or maybe inedible is maybe a
bit harsh,
a bit harsher word, but it doesn't come out of this big fluffy like thing that you think it should be.
Yeah.
But then some weddings you go in,
but still
and
cake.
you think, do you know what? This couple are lovely. They're at like a nice venue.
Yeah.
They've done a few more bits themselves. Maybe like there's you're not looking at this suppliers going, wow, this is going to be insane. But there's just a certain spark on the day or a certain magic, or the guests are far more including or welcoming for you or giving in kind of energy than you think they're going to be.
Yeah.
And you get a wedding that cashes you out and go, well, do you know what? That one was actually a lot more incredible than the one that you think's got the smoke bombs and the best venue. And so I've learned as more as I've gone on is I try not to kind of look at this wedding and go, oh, that one's going to be like the portfolio showcase and this one's going to be a nice day.
That's the trap I fall into.
And now it's like, no, just turn up. Just read the room, judge it by its cover still, and the day will be what it'll be. And I would never ever write a wedding off before I'd got there. But I think there's certain things that I'm more of, especially if you've got, maybe let's say they're doing something for the first time, if they go, oh, we're going to do like, I don't know, like, we're going to have like a champagne spray and you haven't done one, or we've got like, enough smoke bombs for the entire bridal party, or, I'm an acrobat and I'm going to do a backflip off the wedding table or something, like things like that kind of would get your excitement levels up.
Yeah, I feel like there's a trap I fall into of going into a day like this, on paper, this is a portfolio one, like we've got to do this, and it, like, you can often leave those ones feeling like, oh, maybe it wasn't such a, and like, it puts you down a little bit because I think the confidence in yourself. Yeah. But one of the things, and by the way, this is a really like rambly episode. Basically, we've called it ramblings internally because it's just like I just wanted to talk about the stuff that me and you talk about without.
I feel like we're at a point in the season as well where it's nice kind of where we're at episode wise to just kind of have a more looser episode rather than being a very refined topic.
Yeah.
And for kind of where we are in the season as well, just to kind of swap those stories and catch up with.
Yeah, I feel like we have topics to talk about, and then when we stop the recording, me and you just go off on one, and this is basically that. But yeah, talking about approaching a wedding and thinking that it's going to be the one, I wanted to talk to you about unicorn weddings. I'm not sure where I got this phrase from.
I like it though. I know exactly what you mean when you talk about it. Yeah.
The wedding, it's going to be different for everybody, but the wedding that you could film every single day of the year. And
okay, so it's not what I thought you would. It was.
What do you mean? So it's like your best. What would your ideal wedding to photograph be? Like, essentially,
I see my ideal wedding and my absolute what I would call a unicorn wedding.
Yeah,
are two different things.
Right. Okay.
So, shout out to Kate and Ash. My wedding on Friday was pretty much my unicorn wedding. I feel that I resonated with them very, very well. She was a country musician. He drives a Harley. We bonded over a love of mutual music. Very welcoming people, very friendly, wanted very natural photographs, but at the same time had an eye for the aesthetic that they definitely wanted to reflect in their couple moments and kind of have those moments to do them. There was live music on the day. And yes, a really small bunch of people as well. I think there was just less than 50 guests in the day, and they gained a lot more in the evening. And I really like working with a small number of day guests, because it means that groups are easier. You bond with the group easier because there's less people to get round. And then by the time the party comes in the evening, all the people that turned up really brought the energy. And so you kind of got that shift from being like a lovely kind of day into a really kind of party evening. The weather was warm but with a breeze, so that the weather lined up, everything kind of came together and it didn't disappoint. So I think if I could have a wedding like that where people are, and also I think that the biggest thing as well is that not only are the couple on board for the natural documentary style that I do, but the guests are. The fact that you can wander around, you can do your job, and people don't look at you and go, oh, camera, and pose or whatever. They're quite happy to know. They've been briefed that he's doing the natural style. Just you have your day, and I can wander around and haven't got to hide too much. I can literally just be me, and they're not looking up at the camera. They're not looking for that reaction. They can just carry on with their day. I think that for me is to just turn up and do my job and capture people, because you see people talking and then they wander your gaze and then start to almost are aware of the camera. That sometimes can ruin a perfect candid for me. And you think, oh, they just kept the gaze of who they were talking to and had that smile, that laugh, or that cheers, I'd have got that moment, and it would have been. And it's not what it is as soon as they've broken that seal of contact. You know,
we get people who just like, you're filming them from like across the room trying to get a nice candid of them talking, and they'll turn around, they'll see the camera, and they'll just go. Just stare. Or
the other way, or they'll like do like a little pose, or they'll laugh it off, and then go, oh, I can't be serious now that I know I can't carry on that conversation, because now I
don't mind the little poses too much. They're quite cool to put in the little like candid bits of the film, because you know the bride and groom watch it and be like, oh, that's funny. Like, but yeah, I feel like unicorn weddings can be seen in a couple of different ways, because it's your experience on the day. I don't know if you're the same, but sometimes on the day you can be really like. Sometimes I'll get home from a wedding, or on the drive home from a wedding, you sort of debrief yourself, don't you?
Yes.
And I feel like I can be like, oh, that didn't quite work out as I expected, and then the film will be amazing.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I'll leave a day and be like, that was a unicorn wedding. That was just the best day. The couple were lovely. They did this, they did that. And a lot of the things that I look for in a unicorn wedding are a bit more superficial maybe than what you look for. Like you're saying that you're talking about interactions. It's
always approach,
the couple and stuff. But I look for like how much fun are they willing to have? Like if they get on with me, that's obviously a big thing, right? But if they are, you know, a romantic traditional couple, that's probably not my unicorn wedding. If it's a couple who are just like, they're up for anything, they're good laugh together, that on the day it's a lot of fun. And sometimes I'll, you know, be on the way back from a wedding and be like, that was the one, that was so good. And I'll put all the footage together and I'm like, wait, it looks good, but I felt better coming out of it because they're treating me well and they've done this, that and the other. So
I just feel like, I think my experience, I've come to realise that my experience of a wedding is so crucial into the photos as well.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly hard not to be, but I think because you're so close to the day and so close to the people that you're photographing, if there is a coldness or a disconnect between the guests and you, I'm kind of feel, well, like, you know, if you're wandering around a group of candidates and you're getting stared down at every turn, I'm almost like, well, I don't feel like I belong here. So you don't want, you know, like, you kind of like, well, I don't want to just keep going back for more to get more stared at or my back turned on you.
Yeah.
Where if you get a couple that, oh, come in, you know, starting into that pool of conversation, they're quite happy for you to be there. Like, you're like kind of riffing with that energy and like, yeah, okay, come in. And it pushes you to, like, you can only be as, you know, I'm sure we've talked about this in other episodes, and it's kind of a well-known fact of being what we do is where the couple will bring the vibe of their day, right?
Yeah.
So if they're up for fun, the guests are up for fun. If they're more kind of emotional and calm, that tone is echoed throughout the day.
Yeah.
But I feel that the second part of that is with us.
Yeah.
Is that if you know, you get a group of bridesmaids and you're taking them off for that like shot pre-sunset, you shouldn't need to hype them. But if you can be with them like, yeah, come on, God, and you're in it, and they can see that you're excited about going to do that thing, that hypes them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, so I feel that my experience of the day, or my kind of, where I fit into it, how much fun I feel that I can have with that couple.
You feed off of each other's excitement as well, don't you? That's the thing, like the couple needs to have that vibe for you to, if you rock up and like she's stressed and like it's all just got a bit crazy, like bossing people around, you're instantly sort of a little bit on the back foot, like, oh, okay, how am I going to approach this?
And that's
if you rock up
work.
and she's like down in the bottle of Prosecco or something, and it's like 11 in the morning, you're like, this is going to be cracking. Like, you know, it's going to be a vibe, and you sort of reflect that, don't you? But yeah, I think it's, and it's also how you get treated as well.
Yes.
I think that can really make a difference. Like, I turned up to a wedding a week or so ago, and they had a whole box full of treats, snacks of sweets and chocolate and crisps and jammy dodgers and drinks and everything. And there was a whole box for just me and Josh who were filming, and then there was a whole box for the photographers. And they were like, "This is all yours." And the bride and groom had put it together. Instantly, I was like, I want to do a cracking job for these guys, because that's the first time I've ever been given anything like that for the day.
Well, you know, that the fact that they've bothered to think about you in the lead up, like they've not been worried about the hospitality of their guests and themselves, but they've gone, do you know what, this guy's going to turn up and put a shift in for us.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that they're well fed. And
that almost just like spurred me on. That gave me an extra, like, if I turned up with 100% energy, once I got that at 150%, I was
just riding the jammy dodgers. That's it. The sugar rush. The jammy dodgers got you through.
But no, it really does help. And I feel like a unicorn wedding can be, did you leave feeling like you love your job? Or it could be, is this the best film you can make? And I think they're two different things. Yeah. Like for me, the best film I could make, I had very close to a unicorn wedding last year at Southend Barnes with just like a really good bridal party. Like the bridesmaids were so funny, and just like everywhere you point the camera, someone's doing something funny, saying something funny. The couple were really good looking and like really natural around each other and everything. And they were just up for everything, and it seemed really great. And I think that was pretty much as close as it can get. And it didn't have as much of like the sort of what people would call gimmicky things. So it was just about like the vibe that everybody.
I think it needs it sometimes.
Yeah,
like I think, and like you said there as well, it's that spark, I think, between the couple as well. Like if they've got like that chemistry and just desire to kind of have fun, and wherever you turn, that energy is good. You don't need a gimmick of a smoke bomb or something. If you've got a group of people that want to have fun.
They had smoke, but they were steaming by the time we did the smoke, and it kind of made it better because it wasn't. I feel like with smoke grenades, a lot of people want them, but I don't think a lot of people suit them. Yeah. So sometimes you'll do smoke, and it would just be like they're at the hand in the air, like fake smile, and like that. Sometimes you'll do it, and people will be like really spurring people on, And
it's that cautiousness, I think, around it sometimes, isn't it? When they spark, when you pull them and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's and again, when you place that stuff and do it at the right time with the right group of people, sometimes they say, or you get people that want to use their wedding as a segue to be something that's maybe a bit of a strong thing, but like I think the longer that I've done this job, the more that I've realised, the more that I am myself, or unapologetically myself on a wedding day, the more people go, oh, do you know what, I feel like I've really connected with you because I can really see that you're just genuinely having a nice time, or I book people and they go, do you know what, I can genuinely see that we are similar people, and that's maybe why they're drawn to me as much as my work. And I think if you get a couple that maybe are more shy and retiring, and they're like, we're going to buy leather jackets and do smoke bombs, and it's like almost because they're trying to use that photo to make themselves look like a cooler version of them, or they're really trying to push an aesthetic or a style on their wedding which maybe is not that true to how they actually are in real life. That's when it doesn't kind of work. You kind of get that almost like that they're using those things as like a costume or as like a play piece in something. It's not a reflection of
they're trying to sort of fabricate something that's a little bit different. You as a videographer and photographer, you sort of know already just by judging the vibe of them what they actually going to be like together and things like that. Like we sometimes, because we lean into like the fun upbeat stuff, we'll get couples and who you can tell just haven't got that vibe to them. It's not like the boring, I wouldn't say that, but sometimes we get a couple who are like, are we going to do fun stuff now? And it's like, we can try, but you have to bring the fun. I'm not there to make you have fun. That's not my job, sort of thing.
Or embrace it if that's not how you are. Like I did a wedding a good few years ago now for a couple who ran a board game club.
Yeah.
They'd met. She was English. He was Lithuanian. So when he first moved to England, obviously he had very small, limited amounts of English. So they found that they bonded over pretty much dancing and board games.
Yeah.
And so he obviously then had lived here for a while and stuff like that. So then he brought his family to the wedding, who were from Lithuania. So they spoke very little English. So rather than again try and do something really fun, they just put board games on everybody's tables from their house, which are their favourite games, but ones that weren't language based.
Okay, yeah.
So in the evening, you had like his dad who spoke absolutely zero English with like this like crane thing like stuck to his head, trying to build a house with the bridesmaid with another crane. And it made great photos.
Yeah.
And if you're a couple that are into like, like heavy house and raving, the board game on the tables after dinner would have been the most boring thing in the world to them. But because this couple loved their board games and it fitted the dynamic of their day, something which on the face of it seems quite mundane, actually was brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's almost like just really just dial into who you are as a person and what's important to you. And because you rock it in your own kind of cool way, because that's what you genuinely love.
Yeah.
Like if you're passionate about something, that passion is infectious far more than trying to be something that you're not for the sake of a photo.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think like what we've spoken about today, I think just sort of concludes that the vibe is probably the most important thing for a unicorn wedding. Yeah. You can think, oh, this wedding's at this best venue, this wedding's at this place, or there's going to be an amazing sunset. Most of that doesn't matter if the vibe's not there. So I think a vibe is like the key structure.
Definitely.
Like how happy and excited are the couple? What are the guests like? That kind of thing.
And I think as well, like if you'd have asked me originally what I would deem a unicorn wedding.
Yeah.
Like I would take a unicorn wedding as what's your absolute dream wedding? If you could photograph anybody's wedding in the world, anywhere in the world, like what is your like absolute like unicorn dream wedding?
Yeah.
That's kind of the slant that I would take on it. And I think a lot of the things that people go, oh, do you want to do that? And I go, that'd be so cool. I often wonder if they actually would be.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big Disney fan. There are over 400 places you can get married in Walt Disney World in Florida. Yeah. To photograph a wedding just somewhere, like someone to fly me out to photograph a wedding in Disney World, I don't care where, would be cool as hell to me.
Yeah.
But in actuality, trying to fit around that amount of guests and do portraits in the park and things like that, or trying to fit in the timeline, I know would be a nightmare. But the aesthetic of what you could create, if it was like an absolute dream, would be amazing.
Yeah.
And I often think the same about celebrity weddings. Like a lot of people kind of strive to go, oh, I'd love to be doing lots of celebrity weddings. And for all the reasons that we've just spoke about, I'm not sure that unless they were a couple that I knew that then happened to get famous or were people that I genuinely knew, it would live up to what I thought it could be.
Yeah.
Because
you might not be able to vibe with them. Perhaps they've got a planner and you haven't spoken to them. You've spoken to the planner only, and then it kind of takes that, like I know your brand is like personable, right? And if you're talking to a planner, you're not getting that. You're
not meeting the couple, or if they're, like a Premiership footballer or whatever. I know nothing about football, so that we might not have a connection. So that would be, amazing, you've just shot an England football player's wedding. So you say that connection between us wouldn't be there, or we wouldn't have a lot in common.
Yeah.
So it maybe wouldn't work. But at the same time, if you went and go, I'm going to go and photograph like a rock star's wedding, I might love that person in their music, but it might be that the rest of their guests, or we don't vibe in the same way, or you're not able to vibe with them. Because like you say, it's very much like you're hired help. You turn up, you get the shot, you don't talk to anybody. And I wouldn't want that wedding. But on the face of it, it's like, I'd love to go and photograph, like my favourite kind of like musician's wedding.
Yeah, very true.
But it wouldn't, like in some ways, it's almost like you don't dream too far, because I'd worry it wouldn't live up to
your expectation of
it. Kind of the idea in my head of, like you say, of photographing a couple shoot at sunset in front of the castle in Disney World in Florida. You think, like, what couldn't I create? But at the same time,
when you got there, the reality is probably
the reality is very different of what that thing that you can create in your mind is.
I feel like for our wedding we had the vision, like inadvertently probably we had the vision of what we wanted our ideal wedding to look like that we would film. There's a lot of things that we didn't have. Like I do like smoke grenades, I'm not gonna lie. I know a lot of people don't like them. I like stuff like that, the champagne spray and that kind of thing. There's a lot of that stuff that we didn't have, but like what we did have is unlimited prosecco for the guests. So that brought the vibe immediately. We did have a bouncy castle. We had an owl delivering the rings and like a meet and greet with an owl. We had some entertainment for the guests, like magician, and I feel like that entertainment brings like the vibe to people, because otherwise you're sitting people outside just letting them have a chat, and sometimes that can just be like, while you're having your group photos, everyone's just chatting and it just gets a bit flat at that point. So I feel like entertainment for the guests is also a must for my unicorn wedding, I would say.
And I think also as well, it's knowing your guest list and acting accordingly. Sometimes if you know that your family are important to you and you've got a big family and they're going to be at the daytime part of the wedding, if you try and put super fun things in that you would do with your mates and expect granny to follow suit, it's not going to go. So it's almost kind of going, okay, well, I'll do that bit with those people because that's what I do that with. But at the same time, I need that element of that. And sometimes people have all these ideas of, I'm going to plan this huge rock and roll wedding. And then when you turn up in actuality, it's like they've only got like 6 friends there, which are the bridal party. Because everyone else is Auntie Jean and
we've seen that happen before where they've got entertainment and stuff.
And they look at them going, what the hell is this going on? Or you go to another wedding and they've got like literally parents and a brother and everybody else is friends. And the vibe is different again. And it's almost like having something which is authentically you, but at the same time, you've got to have the right company there for that to work.
Yes, 100%. I think with our guests, like my friends are not exactly like really out there, extroverted, crazy people. So like that, I think that's why the unlimited prosecco was big for us, because I was like, if everyone's like just relaxed and having a good time, because it's like you're just drinking basically. You're gonna make the most of the bouncy castle, which most people did, to be fair, and you're gonna be like enjoying yourself a bit more and a bit open and stuff. And that's like, we didn't have many guests there, so we wanted the guests that were there to just feel as like motivated as possible, basically, for our wedding. But one of the things that I don't know if I've spoken to you about this before, but is I'm concerned that as I go up in price, that maybe I would have to start calling myself luxury, or maybe a lot of people I see basically who have started up after me have then gone on to start creating luxury wedding films, right?
Yeah.
And when I see that, I sort of think, so what, to charge more, do you have to call yourself luxury? And if you start calling yourself luxury, are you going to stop getting the weddings that are fun and exciting? And are they going to be more sort of romantic and, you know,
I know what you mean. I don't know what you mean. It's very hard to go that is luxury the only option at a high price point?
That's basically the question. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
From conversations that I've had with people that maybe are starting to charge those amounts, or even on my journey as I started to push up the price, like I'm definitely, you know, even some of the couples the weddings that I'm shooting this year have paid probably over £1,000 less than the prices that I'm charging.
Right.
And some of the weddings I'm booking now are almost double
the
current weddings that I'm currently shooting. I'm not finding that I'm particularly booking different people.
Okay.
Like I said, a lot of their values are the same.
Yeah. Something you said to me at a wedding once, because Kate has the same worry as well. She's like, I want to charge more. I want us to charge more, but I'm afraid we're going to get couples who perhaps, are like a little bit more just sort of, you know, quiet, romantic, but like really sort of, they're spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
But instead of spending it on good, fun things, they're spending it on the flowers or something like that, and the venue and things like that. And like that becomes like, oh, am I going to get? But you said to us, there is your target audience, but at every price point.
I do believe that.
Yeah.
You need to find the people that you're booking now, but the rich versions of them.
Rich versions of
them. And that is the same. And if you, like, for example, take, I don't know, a musician. We'll use a musician as an example. If you're in a touring band, maybe you're at a point where you're pulling home, I don't know, maybe £500,000 a year because you're a touring musician.
Yeah.
You could be a top barrister and be pulling home the same amount of money as that guy.
Yeah, true.
But I imagine that their wedding days, and I'm generalising here, maybe stereotypically, will be very different.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that the barrister's going to have the black tie, you know, like London City wedding, where they're going to spend the money on big, heavy bottles of, you know, musicians, florals, expensive champagne. Where the rock star wedding might be, we're going to get married on a beach somewhere and we're going to, you know, have an open bar and we're going to get someone equally as cool to play our wedding.
Yeah.
And they're two very different weddings and require two very different photographers. And not everybody, and again, I'm generalising here, that luxury where you're thinking now that everything's black tie and everything's kind of pastel-y colours and everything's kind of, say, like blurry and wistful and opulent.
And black and white.
And there'll be people out there that have got some serious spend and some serious budget for their wedding wears. They still don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think all in all, you've still got to stay in your lane, and people will be respectful of what you charge because they can see the value in it.
Yeah.
And you'll still find those people there's people out there maybe that run design agencies or are in more creative jobs, or like I said, I've used the musicians as an example, who are running successful businesses or are in high paid jobs and are willing to spend that money on their wedding. And they're not going to turn around and book the £1,500 guy because they don't see the value in what he's doing, although that they're the more alternative option. I think if everyone's pushing one way, my urge is always to go the other anyway. I think because you don't want to just be the same as everybody else.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I want to get paid well for what I do and push up the ladder, as it were.
Yeah.
But if that comes at a sacrifice for my values,
that's similar to us. That we've seen a trend of like a lot slower, like violin, piano sort of wedding films, and we're trying to like be a bit like the sort of colours are desaturated and that kind of thing. You know, we get those really dark oranges and things like that. We're trying to go for like vibrant and bright and things.
But don't you think that's a trend?
It is a trend, yeah.
It's a trend.
Yeah, it is a trend, yeah.
And
I feel like that when we speak to couples, we say on a consultation call, we'll say to a couple, why have you got in contact with us in particular? And 99% of the time, they'll say, because we looked at so many wedding films and they all look the same and they're quite dark and dramatic and yeah, it looks like a film, but it doesn't look like it's a fun wedding. It looks like a funeral.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, that's what we're trying to go the opposite of, basically. So you've contacted us for the right reason.
And I think you've answered your own question in that aspect, is that essentially then, if what you're saying is you want to make those films, but you're making a really good quality version of that film, you're giving loads, then you're covering yourself a niche.
Yeah.
If it's not there on the day, and so if people are at that price point and are looking for a videographer that doesn't do pastel colours and cinematic romance, they are party people with big wallets, and you're one of the only options out there for them. If you assert yourself as an expert in that area and that price point, it becomes an absolute no-brainer. They wouldn't go to you.
That makes a lot of sense. And there's no evidence to suggest that you do have to go into the luxury market. It was just a theory of mine, because obviously as videographers, we look at people who are more expensive than us and people who are at the top of the game and stuff. And usually those people, at least the ones I'm seeing, are filming the more sort of more dramatic wedding films sort of thing. So I'm thinking, does that mean if I want to charge $4,000, I've got to, film those kind of weddings because I don't want to at all?
I think personally, as I say, I think it's trend based. And at the moment, if you started to look at some of the big hitters in our industry who are shooting those really high end weddings, they're in that style. And I think the people below them are just trying to follow suit and see that if in order to be that, you have to be that person's style, which is where that trend is led from. Where over the years, if something in a few months, something else goes viral or emerges, that a big celebrity's had maybe a really fun out there wedding or something very different again, or there's enough of a trend forming that someone starts to grow in popularity and they're doing the much more fun out there thing, that you're always going to get certain people that are going to swerve and then lean their work that way. And there is a whole episode in this, so I won't ramble on it too much, but all the time that you're following someone else, you're trying to be the best version of someone else, and you're not being authentically you. And if you look at probably the inspiration, the musicians that you love, the fashion designers that you love, anyone who's in a creative industry, is in order to stand out, you always want to be different. Like if you listen to a band on the radio and go, oh, they're just a rubbish version of that band, you don't want to listen to it before, because you're always seeing them as a second best version of who they're trying to be. Wherever you listen to something and go, oh my god, this is so different to anything I've ever heard, some people are going to hate it and switch it off anyway because it's not familiar. But some people are going to go, I love this because it's so different. If
you target everyone, you target no one.
That's exactly it. And I think all they need to do is no one else can replicate you. So as long as you have the values of what you love and stay in your lane over the time with experience and showing that work that you want to move on with, is that you will progress. And people have, I think, different views of what the luxury market is. True. Maybe if you're not in it, and I'm not saying that I'm a long way off the luxury market, people have a view of what they think it is. They think, oh, I'm going to go to these weddings that have got, say like 7-figure budgets and they're going to be this and they're going to be that. And you feel that you have to act a certain way, or they're always going to be the certain type of wedding. Is that in a year, you probably go to weddings of very different budgets and very different feels. And that all just moves up. But the bottom lines on those weddings just grow. And I do believe that is the case.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's really interesting to hear.
And and you're naive if anybody said that they're in this because they love the job. But at the same time, you still want to move on. If you were in an employed job, you'd still get an inflation pay rise every year, or you'd get a promotion if you did a good job. So all the time that you're leveling yourself up as a creative, surely you want to level that to be reflected in the prices that you charge. Very true.
So talking about like trends, do you and obviously you want to be different to a lot of people, right? We scroll through Instagram. I think the problem is we scroll through Instagram a lot and we see a lot of things, and
so do our couples.
Exactly. And we think, oh, clearly that's in fashion now. Like I've just started seeing all these black and white blurry motion blur photos, and that's just sort of got more and more. Now every time I open Instagram, there's a black and white blurry photo, and I get that that's the tradition, and that's the trend that's coming. And like you say, people are scrolling through and they're like, oh, that looks good, I'm going to do that for my stuff, and then that becomes a trend. Should you jump on trends? Is it something that, so recently I've noticed the champagne, last year was smoke grenades, this year is champagne spray.
Yes.
Should you jump on that and do that, or do you carve yourself out your own thing?
I think as long as that trend is in line with your values as a photographer, then do it. Personally, champagne sprays are great for me. I love natural photographs. Anything which causes a natural reaction or people having fun, always makes it. Which is why I love confetti so much.
You can't really set them up. You set them up in a line, but then everything else is
how it goes. And so, which is why champagne sprays work really well for me. They have a visual impact. The people again feel like, oh, this is real. They don't stand in their back garden on a Saturday spraying champagne down each other. So I know I've just said it counteracts what I said earlier about people not kind of it being authentic and stuff. But if you are kind of that more kind of fun flair, it's kind of a way to feel more fancy on your day, but it's still being kind of, you're not a boring person trying to do something really fun. But if there was a trend came out, like at one point, doing those long dip kisses with like the leg out and stuff, that pose was really in at one point, in long grass, having that, or the veil toss was a real thing like a few years ago, having a stupidly long veil with that kind of floating in the wind. Because for me, it was always such an overly posed photo. The couples that I was shooting maybe didn't necessarily want the time it took to do that. So I didn't go, I must get that for the portfolio, otherwise I'm not keeping up.
Or getting a bridesmaid or something to hold it and run or something.
Yeah, and doing that, I've never been too interested in that.
It's a whole process, isn't it?
Because it didn't keep with the values of the styles of when I was shooting. But I think naturally, like we just said as well, is that your couples are going to be consuming. It used to be Pinterest, it's more Instagram now. They're going to be seeing that content as well whilst they're looking at other stuff for inspiration for their weddings. And if they feel that maybe they don't have some of that stuff in there, they're maybe not keeping up. And I've even heard stories of people that got married 5 or 6 years ago now, using these apps to blur their wedding photos that were taken perfectly in photos to reshare them so that they seem that it looks more current, which seems bonkers to me. And but at the same time, if you got married say 10 or 11 years ago, you might have a bunch of spot colour in your wedding gallery, which at the time was a thing, and now it's almost become a taboo thing in the industry that you've got spot colour. But you never know, in 5 years' time that might come back round again.
I think there's a difference though between trends on the wedding day and trends in your style and editing.
Yes.
Because trends on the wedding day, smoke grenades, champagne spray, I'm sure there's plenty more, but those are the ones we're using because they're probably the most recent ones, don't affect your values and your style generally, because sometimes they'll be chosen by the couple, sometimes the couple will just be up for it. But trends specifically in like editing and filming and things like that, obviously there's a trend towards the more handheld side in videography now, which I'm all for, and it looks great. But maybe 4 or 5 years ago there was a strange trend of just like transitions and crazy editing in films. And don't get me wrong, I'd dabbled in it a couple of times. But if I look back at those now, I'm like, I felt bad having delivered that highlights with all those transitions in it, because in 20 years' time, that's gonna be really outdated.
And I think that's it. It does date you, I think, but then I don't consign to the fact, and I never have, particularly, that a lot of people sell themselves as a timeless photographer or videographer, where I think if you do your couple service, they did get married on a very certain date at a very moment in time. And the example that I use all the time is that in my parents' wedding photos, they got married in the early 80s. Then my uncle has like long hair, like bordering on like mullet style long hair. He has hardly any hair now because he's marginally older. But at the time, that was a very topical haircut of the time. The fact that if you got married in the 70s, you might have a groom in like a flared trouser suit, because that was the thing. Like, trends are always going to dictate your wedding, so that your wedding's always going to be anchored to a point in time by certain things like that, which are far out of our control. Like, I've seen more and more of those pointy sunglasses this year, the almost heart-shaped ones. I reckon I did 2/3 of the wedding have had them.
Wow.
Okay. For the bridesmaids or for the bride, or they've been on the dance floor in them in the evening, and they'll become, that's that. But
we love that stuff now, but like you say, in like 2030 years time,
it might not look great. But if I could look back at a wedding that I shot and say some of them are really early stuff, 2014, 2015, when everybody had a flip phone, an iPhone didn't exist. And you see people still doing the same photo shoot you do now, with people taking a photo of their friend or whatever, and you get a shot of them doing it. They're there holding their Motorola Razr or whatever it was. And so it anchors it to that moment in time. And if you're a kid looking at your parents' phone going, look at that phone you've got. That's ancient. That's an iPhone 1, kid. And now we're on the 20-something because it's... It anchors your wedding to that point in time. And the fact that we talked about this in our other episodes, where you used to deliver weddings on DVD because that's what there was at the time, or you could only film in 1080p because that's all that there was. And when the time that you look at that in 20 years time, and you can film on like 24K or whatever, and you can see things or you're filming in VR, who knows? You could put a headset on and be part of someone's wedding that you filmed again because you're in it, and the options of where it could go are endless. So
that's definitely you seen the Apple headset thing?
Yes, that came out this week. Yeah, and so that, and we're a
I
step
just
nearer
imagine
to
the
that,
wedding
aren't we?
videographer walking around with that on, just pointing their head, just looking at stuff.
Which is insane. That could become a thing, or people will be able to attend people's weddings in virtual reality.
Yeah.
If you had that kit set up there.
Yeah.
But it always anchors that wedding to that point in time, because you turn up and you have a set amount of hours to make whatever happens on that day live forever, effectively, whether it's in the film that you make or the photos that you take. There are always certain signifiers, whether it's the bride coming out of the house and the cars on the street dictate that, or whether it's, like, say, the tech which is in their hands, or the style of dress, the style of suit.
Yeah.
All of those things anchor that to a moment in time, and more so than an editing style or...
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I think our aim, I was speaking with Josh the other day about this, is to be as timeless as possible.
Yeah.
So even though sometimes when you're editing, it might feel like, oh, I could do so much more to this. I could add this effect, or I could change this, or I could make it look like this is happening. Like, oftentimes in wedding video, it's not really needed. As long as you represent the day well, you don't need the bells and whistles, because bells and whistles are probably, specifically for video, are the most... sort of are the least timeless things. Like they go out of date, basically.
I think anything which is like a fad or a gimmick, like to a degree, will always come and go.
Yeah, like the whole. Do you remember the shots with like people running and dinosaur chasing them and things like that?
But don't you think now that I was talking about this on the other day though, is that now that generative filters come into Photoshop, it's so easy than ever, and you don't even and things like that start to become. Maybe things like that will start to come back.
Yeah.
Or then again, I think AI is probably a whole episode in itself, which is one we probably need to have pretty soon with the way that these developments are happening.
Advancing quickly.
But the way that you effectively could add celebrities into your wedding photos, or you could add guests that have departed into your wedding photos. Like, I
do wonder how long before couples start asking for like mountains in the background, or like... Yeah. Can we do a shoot down the beach?
My dog can't come to the wedding, but if I supply with enough photos, can you just AI him in? Like, can we get that shot of him licking my face at the altar? Because the AI might do that, or those things. Yeah. So, can you not change this? And where you could take it is quite scary, really. But at the same time, I don't think it can be ignored. It's things like AI, I think, or the way that in like the induction of Lightroom, I'm sure there were photographers out there that still stuck to their film and then became outdated because you could afford to shoot prep and thousands more frames on digital and deliver them. Where if you were still going, I turn up at the church and do my 2 rolls and that's what you get. There's things which are going to make monumental waves in our industry which you need to embrace in order to stay current. But at the same time, if you follow a trend, once the trend's gone, if you've gone so hard down that road of that editing style, particularly, say that's all that you've got left, when the trend's moved on, you've got to U-turn with it. And I think if you're booking couples in 18 months in advance and you've sold them on black and white and blurry, and then in 18 months time everything's direct flash and vibrant colours, you can't give them to that on their wedding day when you've sold them on that, because your work would look so different. It wouldn't look like the same person had turned up.
It's a hard thing to do, isn't it, as a creative, because we have in our contract that our style does change over time. And what does that really mean? But the main thing is, like, a year later, we may be using different cameras or have a different grade. Like, I'm using a completely different grade to what I was last year. So someone who sees the weddings last year might get their wedding this year and be like, oh, that's a different look.
Do you think though? Maybe I'm playing devil's advocate here. Do you think your couples notice?
Nah.
Like, I would like to say that your grade is an evolution. It still has a similar characteristics, although that LUT or whatever is different. You might go, I'm going to make it a little bit less warm or a little less contrasty. And again, we spoke about in our very first episode about getting ready for the season, is that at the beginning of every season, I upgrade my base preset to kind of tweak some things in it. But if you looked at my work from, say, 2015 and looked at my work from now, there'd be definite difference. But if I showed you everything in between, I'd like to think that would be an evolution, that over a year, it's slowly, gradually moved and moved. It's not like you've gone from being washed out greens and pastel-y colours with blur and no texture to like hyper clarity HDR direct flash neon.
We've always had bright and warm stuff, and I think that's the key, is the meaning and the style stays the same, but the colours might change differently. I've even had it to a point where I've created a new LUT in the middle of a project, delivered a highlights film to a couple. And then by the time I've delivered it on USB, I've changed it to my new look because I'm like, oh, actually, their film looks better in this one. And obviously, that I doubt the couple had noticed. Maybe they did, but they didn't say anything. But
I think if you're talking about, you know, that idea of kind of dipping your toe into little things, that's very different than like leaping in the air and jumping in with 2 feet.
Yeah,
and it's the kind of thing is if you've got a kind of core track of values of this is what my business is, it's always going to wander through trends or be dictated to about what your clients are asking you for, because we're in a service-based industry. You need to give the people what they want while staying true to yourself as an artist. But if you then get to a point where you are solely pretty much emulating a popular style, that when it swerves back, I think in order to have longevity in what you do, that's very, very difficult.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we're heading to almost an hour now, I think, which is...
We always knew that if you don't give us a topic, the ramble had the potential to go forever.
We could be here another couple of hours, but I hope this episode has been helpful still. It's still nice we got a lot of good feedback about, you know, our podcast being a bit more conversational, a bit less formal, and we wanted to sort of lean into that, didn't we? And like
Definitely.
Just talk about things that maybe wouldn't make a full episode, but that me and you would normally talk about. It's been sort of very different to the usual sort of bit more educational side of things, but I've really enjoyed it at this point. And
again, we're getting a lot of feedback that a lot of you are listening on your way to weddings or maybe craving that chat that you have at dinner and stuff. So yeah, if we can bridge the gap with some of that in your week, or if you are driving to a wedding, maybe it's given you some things to think about along the way as well, or just generally kind of helpful. Like I think we should at this point shout out as well that both of us have been listening. I've followed since the beginning, and I think you've just jumped on to Creative Commune podcast with the Lawsons and Liam and B the Crawleys as well. And I love the kind of the candidness and the honesty of their podcast, and the fact that you are literally feel like you're sat around the table having that morning coffee with them.
Yes.
And so I like to think that we've taken the heed from that and the feedback that we've got.
Yeah, I really like that style and also that honesty as well.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the wedding industry is quite like rainbows and butterflies, whereas like I think I'll have a good moan. We're British. Come on, let's just have a good moan about.
Especially when you're in good company of other suppliers as well.
Yeah,
I think, you're all in that same boat together.
Yeah.
It'd be wrong if you didn't vent that to people. Talking of which as well, I feel like if I don't put it in at the moment, Katie will shoot me, is that I also run the Wedding Coactive with her, which is like a networking social space, and tickets for our summer social are on sale now. So if you want to come to that and have a good moan with other people, that's a really, really good place to do it.
I wasn't aware of this sponsorship.
Paid ads.
No, go to this thing. I've been
Chris
to the Wedding
is coming,
Coactive
so Chris will be there anyway.
Yeah.
He's been a supporter since the very, very beginning. And so we're running our summer social on the 19th of July. So it's a 3-hour event. It's going to be in that. This is primarily much more social based than networking based.
Yeah.
So if you want to come to like a 50 or 60 person version of the podcast where you can just have a big chat with everybody and vent all of your moans whilst drinking Pimm's and eating ice cream, then maybe.
I think most of them are more social though. Like I found it's just really like before the Coactive, there was just nothing that like brought suppliers together. Like even you'd be like, oh, do you want to go for a drink at some point? Nah, it's the wedding
season. It never materialised.
Yeah.
And I think just offering that space has been, for me selfishly, it's been really great for me to meet other suppliers, and I know that you forged friendships that maybe with people that you hadn't met before the Coactive. So maybe if Chris will let me, maybe we'll sneak a link for that into the show notes as well. And we'd love to see all of you there, and hopefully you'll listen to the pod, and that's what drives you over there as well.
Yeah, it's a great social, great time to like split up the wedding season, the edit in a bit, and I've really enjoyed the Coactive. I really like that you guys are doing it. And
I think something that you said that from one of the very, very first meetings is, if you talk to like your mum or your friends that aren't in the industry and have a moan about something, they don't get it. They're like, boo-hoo, you still go to work on a Saturday and have the rest of the week off and get fed. So what do you want to moan about? So it's kind of to have it just be in a room of people that understand or do what you do is kind of quite comforting to kind of realize that you're not alone in those worries that you have.
Yeah, exactly. You can compare photos of the food that you got last weekend, moan about the couple that came back and wanted something changed, and just have a good time.
Have a good time. So that's my piece on that anyway. That's it. I feel like I've said there's enough endorsement now anyway, but back to podcast.
No, honestly, endorse it as much as you want, because I've found it really helpful and great. So the Wedding Coactive, if you're looking for a social and a bit of networking, that's the place to be. But I really need a wee.
And the meal deal is definitely calling us now. We're an hour in now. So I hope you've enjoyed this one. And next time we're back with a more solid topic again, something that's got a bit more narrative, haven't we? And we're going to talk about how to survive summer weddings. I feel like you can see the sun pouring in now, and so we've all done our share of hot weather and long days, so we're going to give you a few little tips about how we navigate those next time.
That's funny, because last time we were talking about how many rainy days we've all done.
Yeah, and now it was flipped
so sunny.
This is a very British podcast. I think there's an excellent place to leave it. So yeah, thank you for being with us for the last hour, and we'll see you in the next one.
If you're on the way to a wedding, don't knock over any Prosecco. Oh dear.
I still can't believe you did that. I wish Kate was a good video of it though.
No, I know. I was recording, so you can hear me doing it, and Kate goes, "No, you didn't just do that." So I might have to put that somewhere.
It's got to be somewhere. There's got to be an outtakes reel at the end of the year, or there's a reel in that for somewhere for sure.
I don't want to advertise that to my couple. This is some BTS.
Be absolutely destroying all your wedding drinks.
Oh dear. Right, I really need that way.